Good evening. Before we begin the board meeting, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Tsawwassen and Musqueam First Nations and of all the Hunkaminam speaking people who have been stewards of this land since time immemorial. I would also like to offer my respect to all the elders who have gone before us and to all Canadians who are on the journey of reconciliation. I'd also like to introduce each of the trustees. When I mention your name, would you please say present and wave so that others who are watching online may be able to see you? I'm not sure if that'll happen or not. Trustee Boisvert may or may not be here. He wasn't sure whether he'd be able to do this. So, Vice Chair Daniel Boisvert, Trustee Erica Beard.
Hi, good evening.
Trustee Laura Dixon. I know she's here somewhere. Trustee Jesse Dosanjh.
Hello, everybody.
Trustee Nick Kanakis. I know he's here too. Sometimes he has challenges. Trustee Bruce Reed.
Good evening.
And we do have a quorum. We also have representatives from our education partners participating via Zoom conference call. So from Delta District Parent Advisory Committee, we have President Lakvir Brar, and Lakvir is joining us by telephone. From the Delta Teachers Association, we have Susan Yao, who's president. Allison Roche, first vice president. Stephen Platzer, who's on the DTA Executive Committee as treasurer. And Kelsey Barnhard-Leung, who is the DTA Executive Committee member, who is the member at large. From CUPE 1091, we have Dawn Frederickson, who is the president, and Petra Hoy, who is the second vice president. Also, from the Delta Principals and Vice Principals Association, we have Danica Palmer, who's principal at Nielsen Grove, and Taj Reel, who's the principal at South Park. And I believe we may have some media joining us as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you here. So could I please have a motion, trustees? Now I'm not seeing the little screen. So I see this is to adopt the agenda. Trustee Reed, I see you, and you're the only face I can see. Oh, wait a minute. That'll be me because I don't have it in the right mode, right?
Chair Windsor, I'll second. Laura Dixon.
Thank you, Trustee Dixon. All those in favor of the motion? Side by side gallery. Ah, there we go. Those opposed, the motion is carried. We now have ourselves an agenda. So just before we get into our delegations, which I'm so excited, so looking forward to, because this is being recorded and done through YouTube as well, I have a statement that I need to read for you. So just a reminder that there's going to be a question period of no more than 30 minutes at the end of the meeting. Questions are limited to the topics on the agenda. We will take questions from members of the public present in the room first, so if you're on Zoom, and then we will move to questions from those who are watching online. If you're watching online, you can view the agenda by visiting the board meeting page on the Delta School District website. If you'd like to submit questions for consideration during the question period, please email them to questions@deltasd.bc.ca before the question period starts. Your name and question will be read out and answered in the order in which it was received. There is a short time delay of 10 to 20 seconds between when we speak and when it is broadcast on the YouTube live stream. For that reason, I would encourage you to send your question as soon as possible. Hopefully, we won't run into any technical difficulties. I'm thinking of this today. This evening. However, if the live stream stops working for any reason, we will post an updated link to a new live stream on our website. In the event that this should happen, we will halt the meeting for a short moment in order to allow those watching online to reconnect. And now we'll move into the most exciting part of the meeting. I would like to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Nancy Gordon, who will talk about an anti-racism student presentation.
Thank you so much, Chair Windsor. It's so exciting to be here tonight with students from 3 secondary schools. We've got students from Burnsview, from Sands, and from South Delta Secondary who are going to tell you a little bit tonight about the work that's been happening in our secondary schools. And I'm very, very honored tonight to introduce Brooke Moore, our District Principal of Inquiry and Innovation, and Satnam Shahal, who is District Principal in Inclusive Learning, who are co-chairs of the District Anti-Racism Committee. So I'm going to turn it over to Brooke, and she's going to introduce the students and cue up tonight's presentation. Thank you, students, for being here. I am very grateful and excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you to all of you for the opportunity to hear from students. Tonight, we're going to hear from their own mouths about their journey with anti-racism in Delta. And some of them may speak to their personal learning or experiences, and some may speak to their school on behalf of what they've been doing as a team. We're going to go sort of through alphabetical order by school. So we'll start with Burnsview, and I'll introduce the students each in turn, and then turn the floor over to them, and they'll share with you their story before I introduce the next group. So each group of students will be speaking for a few minutes. So first up, from Burnsview, I'm eager to introduce Adrielle McFarland, and I turn the floor over to you, Adrielle.
All right. So the first question that you guys have asked me is, what have I learned? What have I been learning about anti-racism? If you were to ask any student at Burnsview what they have been learning about anti-racism, very few would be able to give you a concrete answer. Most of them would be stuck just as I was. And this is the reason why I sit with you all here today. Due to the lack of awareness at Burnsview, a group of students under the supervision of Miss Dandywall, our English teacher, has emerged to bring important matters regarding race, ethnicity, and culture to the forefront of the conversations happening in the classroom and in the hallways. As the only Caribbean Black female member of this club, I appreciate the opportunity that you have given me to share my thoughts and opinions regarding the current state of anti-racism awareness in the Burnsview education environment. The second question is, how have the anti-racism efforts at Burnsview been going? First, I would like to point out that the student-led anti-racism club is fairly new. It started up during the pandemic, and as a result, we have been working really hard with the minimal resources available to us. Our mission is to spread awareness of those ignorant of BIPOC culture. For example, the Anti-Racism Club has conducted a survey for the entire student body with the intention of identifying in which aspects students felt the most impacted by racism. However, despite our multiple efforts of gathering participants, such as creating daily announcements and making accessible QR codes, links on school websites and posters, there was not enough participation to purposefully engage in action. I would like to personally note that within all my classes thus far, as well as my older siblings who have graduated from Burnsview in the classes of 2019 and 2021, we learned next to nothing about the BIPOC community and how they have shaped Turtle Island, or what is Settler Canada today. And as a result, I believe that this is part of the reason why many students are unaware of the hurtful things that are said in comments across the cafeteria tables. With regards to Burnsview as an entity, there was a great effort made this year to spread awareness of the celebration entitled Black Excellence Day. However, seeing as though Burnsview has been either a junior high or a high school for well over 30 years, I personally feel as though we can and should do more. The third question is, what are the next steps in this regard? So with all of this being said, I would like to propose that Burnsview set 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half aside in the month of February, starting in 2023 for an assembly, whether via conference call or in person, depending on the COVID-19 restrictions at the time, to properly celebrate Black history and culture at the school. I understand that it is most crucial to represent all ethnicities the best way that we can at our school. However, being of Caribbean and African descent, It is very important to me that I advocate for my community. Black culture is used every day in mainstream conversation, music, fashion, and media. With the height of the Black Lives Matter movements and the increased use of derogatory comments I personally experienced as a Black student here at Burnsview, I believe this is a very pressing issue that needs to be addressed. My hope in the very near future is that all ethnicities and cultures will be accurately, justly, and respectfully represented, not just at Burnsview, but in all of the Delta School District. The Anti-Racism Club and I acknowledge our role in being active allies, and my hope is that you do too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrielle. Are the trustees, would it make sense that we if trustees have a comment or question they would like to ask of each student, we do it separate? Are you good with that, Adrielle?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, trustees, are there any comments or questions? I can tell you that was a really powerful presentation, and I thank you for your honesty. It was a message that we needed to hear, and you are so right. There is so much to be done. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you have been treated in that way, and I'm hoping that student ignorance and adults, because it comes from up above meaning adults, people that are older than you, we all need to clean up our act and start treating each other the way we'd like to be treated ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for your bravery and your honesty.
No problem. Thank you for having me here.
Chair Windsor, can you see hands up?
Oh, sorry, I just saw your hand right now. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay, sorry, I didn't know if there was a screen issue. I
No.
just wanted to catch Adrielle before she went. Adrielle, this is Trustee Dixon. I wanted to thank you for your work on this issue and your dedication, because of course, I certainly understand why you have a keen interest, but you're also helping to lift up others and lift up the issue. You did mention scarce resources that were available to you. Can I clarify, did you mean resources to help the committee do its work, or did you mean that it was tough to get participation through COVID and engage students? Can you just clarify that one for me? We'd be interested to know if you needed additional support to actually run the committee.
I think it's both, to be honest
Okay.
with you. Yeah.
So what do you think would be helpful?
I think that what would be helpful is for the faculty to help with this, to broadcast it in their classes and stuff like that, and not just leave it to us, because the students might not, see the posters, or they might not listen to the PA system when we are telling them that there are QR codes or things to help the Anti-Racism Club with, everything that's going on. So I think that if the faculty could, help with that, that'd be very good. That'd be great.
Okay, so you're thinking something, a little bit of class time saying, there's a survey available, here's how you connect to it. You have 5 minutes, and just get students connected to help participate.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
That's great feedback. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Trustee Reed.
Yes, thank you so much, Adrielle, for your presentation. I think one of the things I'm really excited hearing you say is that the education piece is very important, because as you know, sometimes the whole racism, you'll hear someone say, oh, I didn't mean to be offensive. And maybe that's true sometimes, but it's out of ignorance and not knowing that it is offensive. So the education piece is so important. And I want to thank you and the other people for other students for working on this. It's a long road. I mean, education is not just teachers standing and teaching. Education is in living a certain way, and we're better off than we were, but we're nowhere near where we should be. So again, thank you for sharing with us today.
No problem.
Trustee Kanakis. You're on mute, Trustee Kanakis.
I say that all the time.
I think I've lost.
Technology.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Ariel, thanks very much for coming on, because I guess when we look at society in general, there's what we would call deliberate racism, and then there's what we would call inadvertent. And hopefully, as we go through our lives, we realize the impact that we're having by the statements that we say. And a lot of times we don't really, it's almost like we're not paying attention to what we do, but it definitely has a negative impact on others, be it racial, be it sexual, whatever kind of, I guess you want to use the word derogatory statement. So thanks for bringing this up, and I sure hope that Burnsview and all schools in Delta can work on racism within our schools. Thank you.
Okay, shall I introduce the next student?
Yes, please. I think
Okay.
that was, yes.
Thank you. Is Mason here? I have a feeling you are. There you are. Great. Hi, Mason. So
Hi.
Mason is here from STAND. Over to you, Mason.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So to talk about the first question is, what have you and your anti-racism committee been learning about anti-racism? And where our team started was with a survey. We conducted a survey to our fellow students to figure out a hunch, to figure out what ideas and key concepts are things that we need to bring up when taking action on racism at our school. So the themes that we found in our survey was students excusing racist actions by calling them jokes, students wanting to see more diversity in holidays that are celebrated at our schools, and a theme of students knowing that racism is bad, but lacking understanding of why it is bad. From that, I decided that my team needs to focus on educating students. We need to find a way to inform students of what makes racism wrong, the idea that we need to help them understand this is something that shouldn't happen, but this is why it shouldn't happen. You can't tell someone no and not explain what's the actual cause and effect of that action. So from that, I personally took a deep dive into racism as an idea of what, I lost some words, but as something that I wanted to take a deep interest in, and I did research. I learned the differences between systemic racism and racism that we see from students. I did research in critical race theory, the idea that race is a social construct and racism is merely a product of individual bias, prejudice, but it's also embedded in our legal systems and policies. I did research into what's an implicit bias, so an unconscious connection that is made based on your influence from a young age to show the aspect of when you are in an environment that is inherently racist, when you have parents who have specific beliefs, how that affects the children, how that affects them later on in life. I did research into affirmative action and the positive effects it has and some of the negative effects, and I looked into active witnessing. So then we go to the work that we've done in the school. From that, I realized that there is so much about racism that I don't know, so much about being an anti-racist that I don't know. And yet I've done like a lot of research. So I realized for students where there's not an opportunity for them to do that research, there's not that drive or motive, how are we expecting them to understand the repercussions of their actions? So from that, we decided to create a workshop from students for students to create a comfortable environment where we can have an open conversation about what is racism, what is systemic racism, what is a prejudice, what is a stereotype, how to be an anti-racist, what is active witnessing, an opportunity for learning in an environment where it's not a teacher telling you something, it's a conversation of students asking why, students asking, how can I help? And I felt that was the most effective way. So we did that last year. And since then, we have been reconstructing and we've been trying to make our presentation and workshop very, not neat, but in a structure that we can take the data and we can build off of it for future years. We've started doing our grade 8s once again, because this presentation last year I did for grade 8s and some grade 10 classes. This year we're doing all grade 8s in our grade 8 mentorship program. So we've done 2 sessions so far out of 4. And from that, we've gathered the information of what students know about racism before the presentation, and we want to gather what they know about racism after the presentation. So we can figure out what were we able to teach this year? Where are there still gaps in the knowledge? What can we do to help? And talking about what's next, we want to continue to refine our workshops to make sure that this is an education tool that is used, because we feel it's so important. We eventually want to go to elementary schools with an idea of an anti-racism workshop, because I believe that that is when young kids are so able to absorb the information, understand it. And I do understand that there is the common argument that racism is a topic that makes people uncomfortable, and that we have a fear of bringing it up with young children. But if we look into it and we look at where are they learning these racial beliefs from, they're learning it from home, from their parents, from the media. They're being exposed to the topic of racism every day. Even though we're not blatantly saying what it is, we still are discussing it. And I think it's important to give them the options and the tools to choose how they want to approach it. I also want to maybe create a potential culture convention at my school. It's an idea that I've recently thought of, that I want an opportunity for students to showcase their ethnic backgrounds and heritage, and opportunities for all students to engage in passionate learning about other cultures by connecting with their friends and what makes their identity. So that is the work we are doing at SENS. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mason. Trustees, questions, comments? I nominate you to give the course, Mason. What an incredible presentation. Thank you so much. I suspect that Burnsview aspires to your situation. And I know SANS has been so proactive. The video that you've produced and all the other wonderful things that you're doing to try and make people feel safe and wanted. Trustees? Trustee Dixon. I see the hand.
Sorry, I just, Mason, it's so great to hear that you're being such a catalyst within your school setting, because you say you don't know enough yet. You hit every topic that, when we get paid experts in and talk to us about this work, you've covered off all the topics. But the one thing that's unique to Student Voice in this and the student leadership that you're offering is that safe space for students to engage in conversations that, frankly, some adults aren't very skilled in leading. So the fact that, you're unique in your ability to create that change as we move forward, and adults have their own work to do, but boy, if students going forward are getting this right, that's going to solve the majority of the problems. So really appreciate it. Would love to be able to see SANS in action, and I think too, it's already learning for the other students that are on the presentation tonight, that there's an opportunity to network amongst yourselves and build on each other's successes. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Trustee Reed.
Yes, thanks again, Mason, for that presentation. What I liked about what you said, or part of your plan, was the fact that you are using senior students to speak to the grade 8s when they come in. And I'm sure you're aware of this, but I certainly feel from my experience in education that the grade 8s are so strongly influenced by the senior students. They kind of look at you as sort of semi-gods for a while, until they've been in the school for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and then of course they don't see anymore. But
and they know it all.
They know it all then after 5 or 6 weeks. So I would, in addition to encouraging you to do the grade 8 work, try and get it planned with their orientation, even get it right at the beginning, catch them as soon as they walk in the door, and it'll start the thinking process, and then everything they start to internalize about their life in high school will be incorporated with this anti-racism experience that you're sharing with them. And that really helps them focus, because you have to get them when they're young. And I understand too, there's the problem of counteracting some negative issues that come from the home. And I'm glad you recognize this. I'm not sure we have a lot of solutions for that. I think we just have to keep working with the kids and try and counteract any negative they get at home, and just keep being positive in what you're doing. So thanks again. But like I say, get at those grade 8s right away.
Sounds great.
Trustee Kanakis.
Yes, Nathan, thanks very much. One thing that really hit home for me was when you talked about the younger kids. And so really what it is racism is learned. And you gave a couple of examples from, parents or, your peer group or whatever it is. And I guess we all have a responsibility to challenge those views. Sometimes it's not easy. It could be your friends. And in fact, it could be your parents or the parents of those particular kids. And as I said, it takes a lot of courage to challenge those views. And, I guess that's what we have to do, is to convince the youth of today, or, high school kids and kids in general, say, well, why do you believe that? What's your basis for what you're saying here, mom or dad or whatever? And I guess unless we challenge those particular views, they will continue to exist. So thanks very much.
Other trustees? I'm really glad that our secondary schools are focusing on their grade 8 students. They're looking at the future.
Okay,
And
I'll
thank you so much,
the last-
Mason.
Sorry. I'll
Okay.
introduce the last student now. From South Delta Secondary, we have a pair of students. I saw them earlier. There they are, Tyson Lingham and Samir Jaffer. So over to you. And before you begin, I just I have to say, I have to get a word in here. Just listening to these students and all of you today, I'm really struck by the irony how sometimes we comment about, children are the future and they're the leaders of tomorrow. And what you're all demonstrating by being here today and sharing your learning and your actions is that you're really the leaders of today. So thank you for that, and for sharing all of your learning and wisdom. Okay, over to you.
Hi, I'm Tyson Lingham from SDSS.
I'm Samir.
And we are some of the first members of the Anti-Racism Club at our school. And so the first question we have, what have you learned about anti-racism? So during our first few meetings we attended, we learned about the different terminologies regarding racism. For example, being non-racist and being anti-racist, where being anti-racist is taking action against racism. Also, we learned about different books and resources at our school regarding racism.
Okay, and then we also learned about the history of racism. So throughout the years, and then as well as current racial tensions, such as the killing of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and then we also attended team meetings. So we have around 2 meetings a month. And then we also developed, so we got our school to develop a bulletin board where we can, spread our awareness and, let other kids know what's happening around the school. And then we also have an Instagram page where we post, we spread awareness on Instagram, on social media. And yeah, that's yeah.
We've also been developing t-shirts for the past few months. These are them right here. And one of our fellow peers, our classmates, designed it himself. And we weren't thinking of selling them, but on the first day, all the children asked, they wanted to buy them. So the first day we sold 45 t-shirts, and that was amazing. So now we are spreading awareness of being anti-racist. And for our second question, how has work about anti-racism at your school been going? We feel that, like I just said, at our school, there's way more awareness than from before we had our club, and everyone is just nicer and more aware.
And yeah, also with the t-shirts, like I see around the school, everybody wearing the t-shirts. I see a lot of kids I know wearing the t-shirts, and it's it's always good seeing the awareness being spread.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our third question. What are we doing moving forward? Tomorrow we'll be creating a district video for anti-racism. That is one of the things we'll be doing. And also pretty soon we're going to have a Zoom meeting with North Delta's anti-racism district, and we'll be learning from them about how to be more anti-racist at our school. And that is all.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Trustees. Trustee Reed.
As you were speaking, I was also thinking of something that ties in very closely with and as racism, and that's bullying. And we're going to have our anti-bullying campaign coming up shortly. Maybe you can design a T-shirt that's black and pink, and so you can be emphasizing anti-racism and, of course, the anti-bullying, because I mean they are connected. I mean, quite often some of the racism is just simply bullying, and you just happen to choose someone of a different culture or a different look to bully. But thank you guys for your presentation. Thank you for your work. I know that your school is a big school and it's a big job. Like I said to the other students, you know, keep emphasizing working with the grade 8s when they come in. I have a grandson who's in grade 8 at the school this year, and he tells me about the things that happen. And it sounds like he's pretty open to hearing from your group and other groups and really thinking about positive things. So I think that's some of the work that you and your predecessors have done already, but keep on with it, keep doing it, because it is a very important. And don't tire, just keep going.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other trustees? Well, I'm looking at those T-shirts and I'm thinking, every time you put that T-shirt on, I'm sure you recommit yourselves to anti-racism. As the anti-bullying T-shirts, the Pink Shirt Day, which is tomorrow, by the way, as people wear those shirts, I'm hoping they will make that same commitment to treat others the way that they want to be treated too. So thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing in your schools. What grades are you in, by the way?
We're both in grade 11.
Yeah.
Oh, good. They still have another year of your guidance and leadership then.
Yes.
That's fabulous. Well, all the best to you and your fellow students in your anti-racism club.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, Brooke, back to you.
Well, that finalizes our presentation. Thank you so much for everyone's kind attention.
And if I can just leap in and a huge thank you to Brooke and Satnam for the work they're doing to lead this. It's been a tricky time to do it virtually, but huge kudos to our students. You know, the involvement that you're taking, the motivation, your honesty tonight, your commitment, and over and over, I kept thinking passion. You are really passionate about this. And I'm very, very anxious and curious to see where your future path takes you, because your communication skills, your leadership are exemplary. And I am just feeling very, very proud right at this particular moment. And I can't wait to see where your work takes you next. So thank you, students, for making the time to be here tonight. Very, very grateful.
Brooke and Satnam, I'm sure you want to get one plug in at least for the website, the anti-racism website.
Well, after Thursday, you can check out. It currently crashed.
When we're back up and running again.
Exactly. Yeah, it's at deltalearns.ca/anti-racism. And there's a lot of resources and different access points for learning on there.
Thank you so much, both Brooke and Satnam and everyone else who is involved in the creation of that incredible website, which is being very generously shared throughout the province, which is absolutely fabulous. And I've heard nothing but really good things about it. Well, it is a fabulous website. I've been on it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. And students, if you'd rather go elsewhere, like homework or other sorts of things, by all means, you're welcome to stay on the meeting if you like. You're probably, I have to confess, you were probably the best part of this whole meeting, at least the most exciting part anyways. The rest of it is necessary business. So thank you all again. Okay, I'd like to turn, actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because we also have another fabulous presentation, and I'll turn that over to Ted Johnson. You're on mute, Ted.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. And in keeping with Indigenous principles of learning, just recalling that learning is embedded in memory, history, and story. And coming off the wonderful day we had on Friday with our district day, I'm going to turn it over to Diane Jubenville, our district administrator of Indigenous education. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Ted. And I'm just going to ask if I can share my screen. hopefully I can. All right. Well, good evening, Trustee Chair Windsor and all trustees and Superintendent Shepherd and executive. This evening, I'm speaking to you from, I've come home, so I'm speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam people in Richmond. They have been stewards of this land since time immemorial. And I hope that many of you were able to join our powerful day of learning on Friday on the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action 57 and 63. This evening, it's going to be centered on stories, and you're going to hear stories from a number of the department members. And I would like to start off the presentation with a story that I think is a good analogy that we are on in Indigenous education. The story is called The Little Hummingbird, and it is an Indigenous story from South America. And this version is beautifully illustrated by Haida artist Michael Nicol Yagulanis. I won't read the whole story, but the gist of the story goes like this. The Little Hummingbird. The forest was on fire, and all the animals fled, except the hummingbird, which flew to the stream and, picking up a bead of water, dropped it on the flames. Again and again, until the animals said to him, "What are you doing?" And the hummingbird replied, "I'm doing what I can." Our work in Indigenous education has two parts: education about Indigenous culture and education of Indigenous people. I'm going to concentrate on the latter, education of Indigenous people, for this presentation because this invaluable work needs to be showcased as well. This is the side that sometimes deals with trauma and the resulting impacts on learning. The department supports students and their families who are facing challenges and barriers related to their education and well-being. Our purpose is to ensure that collaboration with others is geared towards enriching student learning and wellness while endeavoring to achieve equity and success. Rhonda and her team provide Tier 3 trauma-informed support, essentially an added layer that often spans across departments, schools, and into the community. Michelle and Sevi play a key role in the direct support of the students and school teams. The strategist approach is grounded in building relationships and executing data-driven strategies that put the student at the center. So here are two stories that illustrate how their approach helps both students and staff. And Trustee Chair Windsor and Superintendent Shepherd, there will be some references to some rocks in this story, on these two stories. And they would normally be in your hands this evening, but I will get them to you.
My name is Michelle Strukoff. While I appreciate and understand confidentiality, I am struggling today with not using the student's name in his story. So the story shall begin. I moved schools after grade 1. This was a difficult emotional transition for me. I was described as an aggressive, non-compliant, intimidating, racist bully. When we began support with this student, he was in grade 2 with a diagnosis of CP, encompassing developing brain damage and cognitive barriers that were impacting learning. Not represented in his class, there was no book bin with his name on it. He was not included in rotational teacher reading groups. No art was on display, and he was seated at the front of the room on display with a table for adults at his side. We began data collection across all environments and an asset profile. We endeavor to work in facts. He has 4 EAs, an ITT teacher, 2 classroom teachers, a librarian, and a music teacher. We began accessing his voice. In gym class, he was met with physical mobility and cognitive processing challenges. This was a source of his stress, and his exhaustion was exhibited through aggression. He needed to know where and when he could rest, and he just asked for some help remembering his water bottle. He often felt sweaty and irritated. Multi-step games were too confusing. His understanding of music class was music, dancing, and Johnny Cash. Video modeling of the music class and explicit teaching around the act of learning music and instruments saw him in the school-wide Zoom Christmas concert with a Johnny Cash tribute. Access to regular medical appointments was a challenge for his single working mother. Tireless advocacy by Rhonda, we facilitated his OT visits at school, and the team learned how to support him with his leg brace. This significantly reduced his falling and injury at school. He could now keep pace with his peers. Active recess social peer coaching supported language for play, joining in, asking for game clarification. All of these skills generalized to his PE class. We added his names to the class-wide reading groups. He loves to hear and have stories read to him. He now writes stories and tells them to his class, just as all class members do. His struggles in library were identified. He can't read, so he sabotages the class, so he just doesn't go. Gentle probing revealed that his drool, a symptom of his CP, during COVID, was fearful for the librarian and his school team members. We purchased some very cool bandanas to help him manage his drool and provided easy up masking. People felt safer. This student loves Marvel books and all Guinness Book of World Records. We spoke with the district anti-racist team and coordinators to access age-appropriate anti-racist stories. We sought permission from the school team and family. We facilitated 3 sessions with this student and his ethnically diverse support team to teach and unpack this very sensitive barrier. We then witnessed him about a week later during a diversity in class lesson, make a heart symbol with his hands and quip, "Just love everybody, it's easier." The vulnerability, openness, and self-reflection of this school team allowed us to provide explicit skills training, allay fears, and shift the student to the center of support. We were asked by the administrator when a new teacher was joining the class to meet with her and review the safety plan. And I quote, "This boy is much more than the document, and I know you can relay this." This student and I happily met with his teacher and brought her up to speed on, of course, Johnny Cash. Evidence to perspective shift and the importance of relationships. In June of 2021, our team was invited to attend a share out meeting about this student. The school team wanted to share the successes of this student, and we were invited to a celebration about this aggressive, non-compliant, intimidating, racist boy in grade 2. The school team reported on his friendships, his academic progress, his regular attendance, his humorous demeanor, his kind, empathetic behavior, his artistic abilities, creative storytelling, and leadership in music. His final report card voice, "I have learned to be a friend. He now belongs." This story amplifies student voice, Indigenous worldviews as related to multiple perspectives. We are never all looking through the same lens. This story was rewritten by this learner's resiliency and the school team's ability to see him. He now has a biography, a story where he is at the center. Currently, he is thriving in grade 3. Patience and time for all, collaboration and teamwork, student voice and choice. This is deep evidence of our 2030 vision. Mr. Shepherd, you will find the rock of perseverance in front of you. We will also gift a rock to our student, and you will be connected.
Hello, my name is Sevi Anis. Along with supporting the students and EAs, we invite brainstorming and collaboration with all stakeholders. It is amazing to me how often we as adults seem to forget how big of an impact, positive and negative, we can have on students. I'd like to share a bit of my experience with you all from last year. Last winter, I had come into a situation where the classroom teacher had taken a leave and the student I had come to support was struggling with regulating his emotions. He was not participating in class and finding it difficult to make those ever important friendships. During the first few months of the school year, the teacher's way of dealing with any behavior she saw as disruptive was to send the student to the office, not before getting into a power struggle with this little grade 1 boy. While she was on leave, Myself, along with the EA, successfully implemented a plan targeting the specific needs of the student I was there to support. When the teacher was set to come back after the break, the student understandably started showing signs of anxiety and asking us if he would have to stay in the office again. He would tell us how much he loved being in the classroom, learning and playing with his friends. I'll be honest, it was an anxious time for all involved. Collaboration and teamwork guided our next steps together. When the teacher returned, we definitely saw an escalation in past behaviors. The teacher was more than willing and excited to embrace and engage in some tough and honest conversations in order to move this young learner forward. She acknowledged how her past behavioral reactions had a negative impact on the student. She took the time to repair the relationship and get to know the student on a one-to-one level and build a true connection. She began to confidently embed Indigenous worldviews and perspectives into her classroom, in addition to incorporating many of his interests and strengths. She asked questions and sought information on trauma-informed approaches in UDL, and as a result, this learning community flourished. She was constantly asking for feedback and strategies, and was always open to trying something new. By the end of the year, this little boy was not only seeing success on a daily basis, but he had found a true sense of belonging, of identity, of safety and trust in his classroom and his teacher. I would like to personally thank his teacher for her vulnerability and her permission to share her story. Miss Windsor, you will find the Rock of Transformation in front of you, which will also be gifted to the teacher. This is how you shall be connected.
The success stories we have just heard are like the little hummingbird story. We are helping one student at a time. Another layer of support within the team is the ongoing academic monitoring of students in both elementary and secondary schools. Karen oversees the Indigenous Literacy Initiative, the ILI, at 12 schools this year. Tashi works with students who are no longer in primary grades but are still not meeting expectations in reading. Jessica ensures students are on the graduation path and works with the Indigenous success advocates in the high schools to track their progress. Jennifer works with students who are needing targeted academic support. Let's listen to their stories.
The Indigenous Literacy Initiative, or ILI, is an extra layer of literacy support offered to students with Indigenous ancestry in grades 1 to 3 who are not reading at grade level. When Catherine Watson first piloted this program, she noticed that the students appeared to have the same literacy challenges as non-Indigenous students. There were just twice as many of them. I believe that the difference comes down to the students and their families' relationships with the schools. As we are discovering, the history of residential schools has had a lasting impact on multiple generations of survivors of survivors. I've introduced the ILI team to a variety of literacy-based materials, as well as culturally sensitive resources on building relationships with students and fostering a sense of belonging. Katie Hominiuk was one of our ILI learning support teachers and vice principal at a school in the North End until she moved to a new school mid-year to take over as principal. She sent me the following email. The student's name has been changed to protect their privacy. Hi, Karen. I just wanted to share with you an email I got from a parent. Not to toot my own horn, but to show you the positive impact that the ILI program is having on our learners. I'm not sure how I'm going to say goodbye to these beautiful children. Thank you for the opportunity and your continued support. Hopefully, the initiative will continue for many years to come. And here's the email. Hi, Katie. Just thought I would share my conversation I had with Sam. Mom, want to hear something really sad? Sure. You know Mrs. Hominiuk? You know the really nice lady who likes to spend time with me? Yes. She's leaving. Aw, that's too bad. I heard another person is coming to your school. I hope that person likes to spend time with me like Mrs. Hominiuk. His mom continued in her email to say, just remember on days that are frustrating, when you're feeling a little down, remember Sam and remember the lasting and positive impact you've made on him. You gave him hope that he will learn how to read. It just takes time and effort. Thank you for supporting Sam for the last 1.5 years. Take care, M, a grateful Indigenous mother. And to close, I'd just like to quote Yuri Bronfenbrenner, an American psychologist who so eloquently said, Every child.
Oops, I'm sorry. I somehow cut that off, but that was the end almost. Here, I'll go on to the next one.
I recently had a wonderful moment with one of my students who I support online. Every day we meet and we do novel studies and we talk about current events. Now the student is shy and lacks a little bit of confidence. But every day when we get out our novel, I ask the same question. Would you like to read today? And every day he replies, no, not today. But on this certain day, I ask the question, so would you like to read today? And today seemed different. He was quiet. He was thinking. I too was quiet, giving him time. He said, well, how much should I read? I said, you know what? However much you want, my friend. Just the first paragraph, the first line, the first page, the first chapter. It's totally up to you. He went silent again, and it took all of my everything to stay quiet and give him time. He said, okay, and he read aloud, today. As he was reading, I had tears in my eyes, and I thought to myself, learning takes time. It takes trust and encouragement. I'm reminded of this. What if I stopped inviting him to read? This magical moment would have been lost. So we must give time, space, and keep invitations open and be ready for our kids when they are ready.
The highlight of my year happened during a reading session with the student I've been working with for about a year and a half now. We met the last week before Christmas, and I asked him about how he thought his improvement with reading was going. And he said, I can read now. I used to think it was too hard for me, but now I can read. And that's the highlight for my year because this student is in grade 6 and reads probably at maybe a grade 1 level, but has worked so hard and been so motivated for the first part of this school year and has taken advantage of every opportunity he can to improve on his reading. And the fact that he now sees himself as a reader and sees that he can get better if he keeps working hard is such a huge celebration.
Earlier this year, I began to work with 2 youth who attend one of our interagency programs. The youth were interested in exploring post-secondary options. From our initial meeting, I was struck by how motivated, driven, and resilient they are. One youth expressed interest in studying psychology or possibly social work. The other is wanting to work towards her PhD in psychology and to become a registered counselor. This past month, I had the opportunity to help the 2 youth apply to the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology program at KPU. As we were starting the process, I commented that this is such a huge milestone to apply to post-secondary. They shrugged their shoulders and said, I guess, very calm, cool, and collected, like so many teenagers are. However, when one of them hit the submit button, they let their guard down and said with such enthusiasm, I just applied to post-secondary. Take that for those of you who didn't think I could do it. And then she composed herself and was calm again and collected. While the other, when she pressed the submit button, the smile and pride on her face was infectious. And it brought tears to my eyes, not only with her, but with the other student as well. Last week, I was told that both youth received conditional acceptance to KPU.
Once again, the success stories we have heard are like the little hummingbird story. We are helping one student at a time. All of the positions in the department are about building relationships with the students, families, and school staffs. Students will succeed when they know that they have adults who care about them. Our work family is out there doing what we can, but unlike the lone hummingbird, we are on this journey pulling together, making a difference for Delta students with Indigenous ancestry. There are many other stories to share with you, the TFN Site School, the cultural work in the schools, and the work being done to support teachers with the curriculum. I'd be happy to gather and share those stories for you at another time, but thank you for your time this evening.
Okay. All right, that was cool too. Trustees, any comments? Wow, that my heart feels so full tonight, Diane. Thank you so much. I know that you and all of the wonderful people that work with you and Ted care. They care so deeply, and they're willing to go the extra mile, and they do. And those kids are benefiting from it. I'm so grateful for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, before I'm in tears here.
Thank you, Chair Windsor. That was so powerful. And I can imagine everyone needs a moment to collect themselves. Yep. How does Indigenous Ed Department, Ted, Diane, everybody, how did you have time with that fabulous district day and everything that had to go into that to make this presentation for tonight? And yet we see the powerful learning that you offered us tonight about how students are being put first in all of this, some very complex needs, but of course it leads to such amazing success when you get it right. Just thank you for the work that you're all doing. It's so powerful. And thank you for bringing the learning to us tonight.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very
Other
much.
trustees? No? Well, thank you once again, Diane. I so look forward to these presentations, and I'll talk about District Day a little bit later too.
Okay, and I will get your rocks to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I was kind of hoping you'd open your presentation with those canoes paddling into Dease Slough. Oh, magical moment. Anyways, thank you so much. So we will move on to the next part of the agenda, where we'll have partner input into the 2022-23 budget. And I just wanted to make a few remarks because this is so different from what we've done in the past. So this year's budget process is being changed to make sure that public and partner engagement will be more transparent than ever before. Today's meeting provides the opportunity for our partner groups to give input into the upcoming budget. Unlike previous years, however, other input will be sought at the March 8th public board meeting in 2 weeks. In between those two meetings, several different groups will meet to provide their input to the board. Beginning with an introductory webinar tomorrow at 7 p.m., and you'll hear more about that a bit later. 4 more sessions will be held for CUPE, the DTA, the Delta Principals and Vice Principals, and for the First Nations Education Advisory Council. On Tuesday, March 8th, we will hold an engagement session for the public at our regularly scheduled meeting. Creating a board budget is a complicated and lengthy process, but if you'd like to know some of the nuts and bolts that go into arriving at a budget, I'd urge you to attend tomorrow's webinar. Starts at 7 o'clock, is over in an hour. A question and answer session will follow the presentations. If you're unable to attend, the webinar will be made available on the district website. Any questions from the Q&A will also be accessible from the district website. So we asked all of our partners if they would like to make a presentation tonight, and QP 1091 and the Delta Teachers Association both responded. So I'll turn this over to Dawn Fredrickson, who is the president of QP 1091.
You're muted, Dawn. You're muted.
Thank you.
Oh, I hate that. Hello. Hello, Chair Windsor. Thank you very much. I too enjoyed Diane's presentation and enjoyed our Pody Day on Friday. So good evening, Chair Windsor, Superintendent Shepherd, trustees, QP members, Susan Yao, and Delta Teachers Union, Delta PAC, and the Delta community. I'll try and make this brief, but I do have quite a bit to say, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say it. So thank you. As Chair Windsor mentioned, I'm Dawn Fredrickson, President of CUPE Local 1091 of approximate 950 Delta School District support staff, representing clerical, including HR staff, high school admin pop art, among many others in the clerical department, as well as education support workers, including CYCWs, Indigenous support workers, itinerants, EAs, multicultural workers, and others, and our maintenance department and our custodians. These past 2 years have been the most challenging and difficult for all of us. As equal stakeholders, this has been a huge weight on all of us to provide the best possible education and service to Delta School District during this continued challenging and stressful pandemic. I cannot say enough how honored I am to be the leader for CUPE members and to sit on the many joint committees to do this work together in such hard times. And as I've sat at my desk in my safe office, as the CUPE members have been out doing the work, keeping schools disinfected and safe from COVID, who supported essential workers and vulnerable children, care for students, open schools, fix schools, and welcome families. And I'm extremely proud of the work of Local 1091 every day. Thank you to the board for this year's gift of $25 to all staff. Thank you on behalf of the support staff. I look forward to continued recognition and acknowledgement and a sense of belonging of the support staff in this district. I have a few asks. It's become very apparent, and I know school administrators and the Delta Teachers Union will agree, that the district needs to continue having a daytime custodian in every school, not just high schools. Having a daytime custodian has truly followed the district's vision that equity and inclusion are the norm. Then add that custodians have felt a sense of belonging and felt supported at schools in a way that's been missing for many years. We can't go backwards. In the 2022-23 budget, there should be no further reduction in custodians. Students, teachers, administrators, and CUPE members have felt protected by day custodians, and we need them. Clerical members are the first contact to families in schools and workplaces. They are the face of MyEd and SIMS, Employee Connect, and access to technology for families. Office administrators, clerical, and the HR department are overworked. They continue to have new duties added, more responsibilities, more work. HR, or employee services, is so short-staffed they find it hard to take a day off or call in sick for fear of even more backlog of work. Administrators need to support clerical when they must work extra time to complete the multitude of duties in a limited amount of time. We must ensure that the provincial framework agreement is followed and no unpaid work. There is a need for additional office support members to help office administrators. We must find a way to help these important workers feel valued, supported, and paid for the work that they do every day. At last year's budget presentation, I said this: it took time, perseverance, and a few phone calls, and 2020-2021 clerical and managers worked together to create a professional development team that created plans for the success of schools' office operations and the opening and startup of September 2021. Now this year, in January 2022, this work has been stopped. There's no avenue for clerical to learn and grow in their very challenging and important work. There's a gap on what the work is and who is doing it and who is doing the training. The union requests a peer support clerical to do this work of being the bridge and the connection to management and the work being done. We must follow the vision of teamwork and collaboration enriches learning to ensure clerical are part of the team to adequately address the needs of the role. WorkSafe BC provides guidelines that districts must follow for health and safety in the workplace. BCPC, CUPE, BCTF, Principals and Vice Principals Association, Superintendents Association, and others created a Violence in the Workplace Toolkit as a resource for everyone in BC. This toolkit supports is all about our responsibilities to help prevent workplace violence, respond to workplace violence, report workplace violence, and reevaluate prevention practices. In the last 3 weeks, I've spoken to 3 different administrators that were not aware of violent incidents happening in their schools, that safety plans were not updated, and incidents were not being reported. It's everyone's job, including CUPE members, to be safe at work. This new toolkit supports this advocacy and voice. I encourage everyone to go to WorkSafe BC, help prevent workplace violence, and watch the video. To do this work ensures that everyone, including students, get the best supports they need to be safe and successful in schools. We need to put the time and effort into training of Workplace BC guidelines. A significant amount of money has been invested in the new reporting system called Clever. It's 2 years and we're still waiting. Let's invest in training for all our members to ensure they know how to use Clever, follow the WorkSafe BC process so members know where to report, how to report, and everyone is safe at work. I've had conversations everywhere I can about EA work and the importance of their skill sets being in addition to the success of classroom teachers and students. EAs and members working with students are not teachers. They are the support of the classroom, schools, and student success. In September, there was a shortfall of 37 EAs in classrooms across the district. Was this to save money? Was it to provide additional services needed elsewhere? I don't know the answer, but what I do know, the cutting must stop on the backs of EAs where ultimately it affects students and classrooms. Fill schools with what they need in September 2022. Create inclusive teams with QP in schools with the focus on all staff having the skills to do the work. We must invest in the adults getting the work done. When we think of inclusive classrooms, it's the voices of the people, including the EAs, that must be considered. Core competencies are sets of intellectual, personal, and social emotional proficiencies that all students need to develop in order to engage in deep learning and lifelong learning. This is from the BC Ministry of Education. Core competencies are about our learners, personalization, inclusion, and diversity. Research suggests that reflection, self-assessment is the most powerful instructional strategy. Reflecting on our members' lifelong careers of learning for the success of students needs to be a focus. Assistant Superintendent Brad Bauman and I have had some rich conversations on where to next for EA's professional development and their learning on how best to support the success of classroom teachers and students. We need to take a good look at the positive impact of peer support EAs, how they play a significant role in supporting the new EAs who, because of COVID, did not have in-person practicums. These positions were supported through LIFT. I'm talking about the Peer Supports Learning Improvement Fund, and we need to ensure these 3 very important peer support jobs continue. Data proves building trusting relationships are impactful to the sense of belonging and connectedness, and EAs, CYCWs, multicultural workers are sometimes the only connection piece for the success of vulnerable students and families. Filling the needs of vulnerable student supports in schools and providing best practice education for those supports has to be at the forefront of everyone's focus for next year's school budget. Delta is a leader in this area. We have the resources to provide it, so let's get this work done together. While on the topic of EAs, when following the 2030 bold vision of equity and inclusion are the norm, my concern is the continuation of no unpaid work. Let's look at each school's budget. It's been shared with me that administrators won't provide extra time for EAs to attend IEP meetings, safety plan meetings, or staff meetings. Can we start the conversation about who's working in schools? And during Black History Month, I quote Jesse Jackson by saying, when everyone is included, everyone wins. The maintenance department continues to have concerns with recruiting and retaining qualified trade staff because of our pay inequity in trades in Delta. If we want the best team, if we want to recruit and retain and build capacity, we need to pay them what they're worth. We have trades leaving within weeks of being hired because of significant increase in pay from other municipal and public sectors. Let's pay them what they work, keep them, and honor their passions. It's essential that the district provide a safe space for diverse QP members. We have work to do to end systemic racism, as we heard from the students earlier, and all systemic concerns. And I encourage everyone to be a part of the solution and not the problem. Sitting on the Inclusive Learning Action Committee for the last 4 years, it's imperative this work continues. The Equity Committee and the Inclusive Learning Action Committee must continue to be an investment in being in the norm. I hope this week with the provincial announcement that the funding formula increases in schools, I hope that's what we hear. But if we don't, I encourage the district to find the numbers in the 2022-23 budget to keep all regular and temporary QP staff for the better of all. I know the district just has always been fiscally responsible, I'm sitting at the table with BCPC, fighting for our members to be on the forefront of budgets. And these funds cannot be used on the backs of CUPE members. We must work together for a solution. Finally, thank you to Dale Hunter for her years of work at HR. I'm taking the opportunity to honor her. This is her last week before retirement. Dale's managed HR office and support staff for 14 years. She's been a wealth of knowledge. Her work ethic for the district and our members has been outstanding. Dale will be greatly missed. Thank you to Judy Miranda and Doug Shepard for the equity, inclusion, collaboration, and conversations to build on district's vision where all learners belong and everyone soars. Thank you to Assistant Superintendent Nancy Gordon and Brad Bauman. Thank you to Diane Jubinville and Ted Johnson for the access to have meaningful conversations. I was honored to sit on the District Day Steering Committee, a call to action this past Friday, and it was a great day of learning. We had many CUPE members attend for the very first time. They've shared with me their gratefulness in being invited to attend. I look forward to more continued conversations of Indigenous learning. Thank you to the Delta Teachers Union for the relationships we built and the connection of CUPE 1081 members and Delta teachers. Thank you to all of you for seeing CUPE Local 1081's hardworking members as valuable key to the success of Delta School District. I look forward to continued discussions next week, and I'm appreciative of the invitation, Chair Windsor, for the budget process and collaboration. I would like to finish with child psychologist Dr. Jody Carrington. We're all just here walking each other home. Thank you, Chair Windsor, and for the Board of Trustees for your time.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Would you please send your remarks to Shani?
Yes,
so that
absolutely.
Trustees can have a chance to read them as well.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
So much.
Thank you.
And DTA President Susan Yao.
Well, I wouldn't want to hold back Dawn from answering questions, so but I'll just continue with mine.
You go ahead.
Thank you. So on and thank you, Dawn, for mentioning the DTA, and I know that we do value the work of CUPE, who work so closely with DTA members. So on behalf of all Delta teachers, I'd like to thank the chair and trustees for this opportunity to provide input into the Delta School District budget for 2022-2023. Today is significant to those who self-identify as math nerds, or for anyone who notices patterns. Is it coincidence alone that today's consultation with the public for the 2022-2023 budget is also a quote unquote palindrome date, a day that reads the same backwards and forwards? 22/02/2022, and yes, it's also a Tuesday. In a Google search, a top question on the subject is, are palindromic numbers lucky? Okay, admittedly, that's where I would tune out, not being such a believer in the magic of numbers. As humans, we decide what is significant or meaningful. We decide where to put our attention. We consider so many pieces of information to analyze the situation and ultimately to make our decisions. So what if today's date is palindrome or not? It may be interesting, but how does it factor into what we choose to do today? Delta teachers are nearing the end of the current collective agreement, and the DTA and district have concluded local bargaining, in case you didn't know it. Last week, the DTA held a ratification vote, and I can report to all of you that the vote, which concluded on the evening before Delta District Day, passed with a 96.9% of respondents voting yes, but not to the dress. This is a positive development in what has been a challenging couple of years, no small part due to pandemic realities. It is almost 2 years since we ratified our previous local agreement and that of the provincial collective agreement. What is noteworthy this time around is that things are playing out differently, and local teachers associations in BC are doing local bargaining ahead of the work of the Provincial Bargaining Committee. This is new for everyone. What is particularly noteworthy to report to trustees is that Delta is the first district/local, because we call ourselves a local, to ratify our local matters agreement in BC. And I confirmed that with the BCTF today, so we get bragging rights. This speaks to the harmonious working relationship between the Delta Teachers Association and the Delta School District. So now, how to spend this hard-earned capital of relationship. Every year, the district invites partner groups to share their hopes and dreams in the face of the hard realities of the budget process. it is not lost on me that this cycle runs its course every year and that we have all been here before. All the more reason to dig deep into what our values are in making decisions. This year, the DTA and the district collaborated big time on a project known as peer support. Funds for this came from both district and DTA sources. The two teachers running the program are bringing expertise to their colleagues for one-on-one, one-to-one strength-based support. This program has allowed teachers to create action plans for their professional growth and strengths to their professional learning goals. As this is a one-to-one program, there is a cost in time, energy, and yes, funding. The DTA is committed to continuing to direct available funding to this amazing program, which fulfills the district's Vision 2030, its mission to inspire and nurture. Furthermore, it aligns beautifully with Delta's Vision 2030, a vision that Delta be an innovative, inclusive community where all learners belong and everyone soars, including the teachers. The peer support program, with its two dedicated teachers, Dana McDonald and Fiona Fraser, is an innovative program that is creatively and collaboratively helping educators to soar. The DTA strongly supports this district and DTA venture, and while budget decisions will be made, the DTA's hope is that this new venture will be supported by Delta's school board trustees. The COVID-19 pandemic has shed light onto inequities in the system and the problems of the haves and the have not much. Food insecurity, housing shortages, exorbitant rents, access to medical care, including being able to find a doctor for your family care. What do any of these have to do with education or educators? Plenty. Many of our students and their families are struggling. Children who come to school hungry are going to have a hard time focusing. This may exacerbate learning and social differences and certainly does not support growth and development. Our teachers are also in need of supports, and we know that our community is strengthened by helping each other. These are not easy times. We're all seeing the effects of a system chronically underfunded and stretched. One thing we can control is the listening and care we bring to our decision-making. The DTA welcomes dialogue with Delta's trustees. Please call us. You have us on speed dial. We have you on speed dial sometimes, and we can talk about the priorities which affect so many. The work we do is all about relationship, and it's why I'm here today and will continue to show up. I believe in and value the collaboration and innovation when we work together, and I know that we are stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. And would you please send your remarks to Shani as well? And both you and Dawn are so correct in that we do value and cherish the relationship, the working relationship that we have with all of our partner groups. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along with the next part of the meeting then. Could I please have someone move approval of the minutes of January 11th as circulated? Trustee Kanakis, seconded Trustee Beard. All those, any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, moving down to item 6, unfinished business, IB fees. And I believe, Nicola, is that you or Nancy Gordon?
Hi. Now, I'm not sure if Shani is sharing the screen or not, but tonight it is the annual time of year when we bring a recommendation to the board around IB fees. And there are 2 IB programs in the district, one of those being Sequim Secondary. And the recommendation this year to the board is to have no fee increase for Sequim Secondary. And I'm not sure if you want Chair Windsor to handle these in separate, or if you'd like me to make both recommendations. How would you like me to proceed with this?
Yes, please. If you'd make both recommendations. Actually, we have a single recommended action.
Great. And then at the elementary level, we have an IB program at English Bluff Elementary, and the recommendation this year is to have a $5 a month increase for single, double, and triple children. So that is the recommended action, a slight fee increase to cover increased costs associated with that program. So two separate recommendations. For Sequim, no fee increase, and for English Bluff Elementary, a $5 a month per child increase is recommended.
Thank you. Trustees, may I please have someone move the recommended action? Trustee Reed, seconded Trustee Kanakis. Is there any discussion? No? All those in favor then? Thank you. Okay, now before we get down to the last part of it, with our business, which is information, proposals, and reports, I have one more thing to read you because we're getting close to the end of the meeting. So we're about to discuss the second to the last item on tonight's agenda, and following this, we'll move into the question period. We will start with questions from our education partners and the media who are participating via Zoom conference call. We will then move on to questions submitted electronically. So this is a final reminder. If you are watching the live stream on YouTube and would like to ask a question on items on the agenda, please make sure you send it to us before the question period begins. And that address is questions@deltasd.vc.ca. As I've already mentioned, there is a short time delay between when we speak and when it is broadcast on the live stream. By the time you see and hear me saying these words, I will have already moved pretty darn close to the final agenda item. So please don't delay in emailing us your questions to ensure that we receive it before the start of the question period. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to item 8A, 2021-22 amended budget. And I'll turn that over to Secretary Treasurer Nicola Christ.
Thank you, Chair Windsor. I have for you the amended budget today to be approved. Under section 113.2 of the School Act, the 2021-22 amended budget must be prepared as directed by the minister, and it must be submitted to the Ministry of Education by February 28th. The amended budget is a revised expression of the original budget, and it incorporates any known changes that have taken place or are expected to take place since the beginning, since the original budget that we've created for this year. And like any original budget for the year, the amended budget has the same style in the sense that it combines the operating fund, the special purpose funds, and the capital funds. And something that is to be known about the amended budget bylaw amount is that it represents the expenses, not the revenues and expenses, but just the expense amount that is incorporated in those three types of funds. So the amended budget bylaw, which is the amount to be approved in this process, comes to $205,392,783, and this amount is higher by 10.793 million than the 2021-22 original budget bylaw amount, which was 194,599,915. And I'll tell you a little bit about what caused that change. It's a fairly large change. There was a large change last year as well to do with COVID and the funding we received from the provincial and federal governments. We did not receive that funding this year, but we contributed funding from our own end as well. So I'll give you a little bit of information on that. So the operating of the 10.793 million, the operating fund went up by 6.692 million. On the expense side, the special purpose fund expenses increased by 4.163 million, and the capital fund had a small dip of 62,000. So I'll give you a little bit of detail in each of those areas. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit here. The 6.692 million in the operating fund increased mainly due to the following reasons. 1,226,000 increased in operating costs due to the fact that our illness and absence costs increased this year significantly during COVID, probably not unexpected. Also on the operating fund side, there was an increase from the use of our reserve funding of 4.735 million. Most of that was spent on staffing, or will be spent on staffing in the current year, and a significant part of that has to do also with COVID transition funding, in that sense, where we kept initiatives going that were funded by the provincial and federal government last year and are funded this year from district reserves. And additionally, there was an increase in capital asset purchases also from operating reserve dollars of $730,000, and they were spent on technology, is the most significant portion there, some replacement vehicles in facilities, some building projects, and to complete some capital projects from the prior year that didn't get completed then. I'll tell you a little bit about the cost increase on the special purpose fund side. So there the increase was $4.163 million, as I already mentioned. Of that amount, $2.142 million in the increase had to do with class size and enhancement funding. We managed to apply for 10 additional teaching FTE and were successful in doing that. And additionally to that, there is a second installment from the Ministry of Education that arrives each year. So initially we receive only 90% of the funding that the ministry has available for us. And then by the time the amended budget comes around, we receive the remainder of that. So every year or in and of itself, there is already an increase in the amended budget. But this year, the increase was significantly higher because of the extra 10 teaching FTE. Also, what went up in the special purpose fund are $1.713 million for teacher remedies. And that is because the ministry takes back any unspent funding at year end, and then they give it to us in that year. So that amount, the 1.713 million, have to do with this year and the prior year that was unspent. And then the capital fund is really quite a small amount, of $62,000 in decreased amounts compared to the original budget, simply have to do with the estimate for asset amortization and lease interest being a little different from what we originally thought it would be. And this basically explains the change in the budget. And I can tell you that our overall shortfall in the operating fund this year is anticipated to be $3 million. And that's now I'm referring not just to the expense side, but the expense and the revenue side. And that's because we've had a decrease in enrollment and our operating grant resulted in having a lower amount by almost $1.4 million. So the two significant factors there are the increase in illness and absences and the decrease in ministry funding in the operating grant. And that's what I have for you today. We'll bring you more information in the budget engagement process. And I'll stop here for a moment if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. So I think we'll get the motion on the floor and then trustees can ask questions if they would like to. Are you okay to wait, Trustee Kanakis, or?
Do we want to move all three readings at the same time?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I need is a motion that the Board of Education give approval for 3 readings at one meeting of the 2021-22 amended annual budget bylaw. So are you moving that, Trustee Kanakis? Yes. And may I have a seconder? Trustee Dosanjh. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, now we'll get on to the 3 readings. So could I please have first reading that the amended annual budget bylaw in the amount of $205,392,783. Say it quickly, doesn't sound like much. Be given 3 readings and adopted. First reading, Trustee Dixon rather, sorry. Seconded Trustee Kanakis. All those in favor? Opposed? Second reading of the same motion. May I have a mover, please? Trustee Beard, seconded Trustee Reid. Any questions, trustees? On the amended budget? Okay, all those in favor then? Opposed? Motion is carried. And third reading of the same recommended action. May I have a mover, please? Trustee Dosanjh, seconded trustee Kanakis. All those in favor? And opposed, and the motion is carried. Okay. Now, I haven't forgotten trustee remarks. Yes, I did. We're going to get down to those after we appoint some auditors, actually. So moving on to appointment of auditors, and trustee Reed and trustee Kanakis, there is a recommended action. So trustee Kanakis, are you moving, and trustee Reed seconding the motion that the Delta Board of Education approve BDO Canada as the auditor for an initial term of 3 years beginning 2021-2022? Okay, would you like to make any comments? Nope. Okay, auditing is exciting business. All those in favor of the motion then? Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, moving now, let's go back to where I forgot. And that is Board of Education report. Trustees, anything to say? Oh, come on now. Trustee Dixon. I know people have been involved in stuff.
They have. I know trustees have been attending a lot of meetings. So I will run through a list. It goes back to January 14th. So it's something I've captured so that Shani doesn't have to type furiously here. So just hitting the mountaintops. January 14th, the Canadian Schools Mental Health Leadership Group met. We had a focus on trauma-informed practice. What is fascinating about these national groups is getting a bit of window on how other jurisdictions have been faring, and of course, talking with other provinces about, adding on a lens around mental health and mental wellness when people are feeling very much disconnected, especially in jurisdictions where people spent so much time out of school over the past 2 years rather than in schools, as we did for the most part in BC. And just giving them an opportunity to learn a bit, I think we've done a good job in Delta. When we couldn't be together, we would still find virtual ways to keep the connections going. And maybe if we didn't have the opportunity for professional development or in-service together, we could use some of that budget to share a box lunch or something, even if we had to do it apart. So I'm hoping some of the other jurisdictions feel that they're getting their momentum back soon. January 25th and February 16th, there have been 2 Metro Branch meetings since we last met. Chairperson Belle Windsor has attended both of those with me, and we recently had our AGM and a real vote for stability in the recent executive elections. So that was districts continuing to share. I would have to say inflationary costs are one of the new things on the horizon for concerns for boards. That's something we've all been talking about. February 4th, BC School-Centered Mental Health Coalition met, and it was lovely to have Assistant Superintendent Brad Bowman at that meeting. There's so many things on that agenda, couldn't possibly highlight them all, but tying in for tonight's meeting, we did have a report on the pathways to racial justice. So that's the Ministry of Education's work on the Anti-Racism Action Plan. I don't know if some of you remember that they struck a committee, so there'll be more work and support coming from the ministry level on that piece. February 11th, CYC, Child Youth Committee, met. That's some 40 youth, child, and family serving agencies meeting. And we have a very special new member for our last 2 meetings, and that's Nathan Kanakwa Wilson, who's presenting, who's doing the acknowledgement at the beginning of the meetings and really participating in a strong way. So it's so nice to have his voice there. Our last meeting, we had a presentation from Delta's social action plan by the City of Delta's social planner, Olga Sherbina. Also of note, I don't know if any of you are aware, but there are several subcommittees that come out of CYC. It's a really robust part of the collaborative work and planning that all the member agencies do on behalf of the children and families we serve. So they also have subcommittees for Healthy Delta, a middle years group, a childcare task force. We're working on concepts around a possible space for Delta youth, There's a Delta Kids Early Years Subcommittee and an Inclusive Delta Subcommittee. So it's very extensive, the work that the agencies are all participating in outside of that main table. January 24th and February 14th, Healthy Schools have had 2 meetings. Trustee Jessie Dosange attends those, and we both have deep appreciation for Neil Stevenson, the Director of Learning Services, who's jumped in with a new focus, pulling together a wide variety of input on how we might enhance physical health for both students and staff. Questions on the table include, where are we now? How do we make shifts to improve the physical health of students and staff? How does this work connect to lifelong health, improved academic outcomes, and mental health? And finally, how will we know we're being successful at this work? February 15th, a group I'm part of, the Student Substance Use Prevention Project. Boy, that's a mouthful. That's a contract funded by Ministry of Health, and a report will become public once the Ministries of Health and Education have signed off. And there's a newsletter service that I'm forwarding through the superintendent to staff in the district who are working in that area. That is a constant stream of information on prevention of problem substance use. And then last but not least, I just wanted to say thank you for District Day on February 18th. So powerful. Thank you for allowing trustees to continue our own work on calls to action in support of reconciliation. It's very meaningful to us that we get a spot at the table when this work is going on. So that's it, Chair Windsor.
Thank you so much. Trustee Dixon, others? Trustee Dosange.
Thanks, Chair Windsor. On January 20th, with the Chair Windsor, Assistant Superintendent Brad Bowman, and Nancy Gordon, I attended a DEAC committee meeting, which is hosted by SIACM. And the teams, the students, they discussed about a value system for the 2030 vision of a district. Introduction was very powerful. Students talk about their school identity. How do they contribute? How their teams, school teams contribute, and how adults in our districts contribute to our vision. I was very impressed by DEAC team for their plan to promote the value of a 2030 vision. For example, they introduced an announcement policy to improve community engagement, introduce a bulletin board nearby the front office, and to deeply engage, they plan to text weekly, connected each other, cultural celebration, talk about a global issue like Black Lives Matter, no farm, no foods, anti-racist team, create a safe space for all students in all schools, big buddy mentorship, which is a great transition for grade 8s. Overall, it was a very healthy and thoughtful discussions, inspiring and a powerful message from students and from their teachers. On February 17th, also attended another DEAC meeting, which is hosted by Burnsview. The meeting started with a very creative and a motivative movie, Hangman. In that movie, it was so interesting to see hamster see the challenge, find the solution to reach to the hangman by stacking block one by one. And the students talk about the challenges their schools have it this year, and they share their thoughts, their ideas. Biggest was COVID restrictions, uncertainty, rule changing, and then what's the solution they see it. It's just lots of social media, teachers help. Again, like the first meeting I said, it was so nice to see our students working together to make our school safe and to helping each other And again, I would say the great job by our students and for our teaching staff. On February 18th, I had another meeting with the North Delta Secondary School athletic directors. And he had about 2-3 other teachers and athletic directors from other schools. We are planning to have a Delta School District track and field championship. So that would be announced very soon. And that's about it.
Thank you so much, Trustee Dosanjh. Trustee Kanakis, I saw your hand there.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to comment about one event that I found the most powerful, and that was the District Day opening. And I'd like to thank Director Johnson, Diane Jubenville, Paige Hansen, and Nathan Wilson for all the work that they did on the beginning and that whole process. It was very appropriate in my mind as a welcoming from the Tsawwassen First Nation to the Musqueam, and I was actually quite emotional when I saw the beginning of it, because if you watch Nathan Wilson, he went into the water and he had cedar in his hand and he was washing himself of everything, and then he turned to the 4 directions. And what he was doing was he was welcoming in all his ancestors from all over to come and join him. And then it obviously transitioned to welcoming everybody else in. And that was, as I said, very appropriate for a district professional day. And especially when we're looking at, the reconciliation and sections, 57 and 63. So I just hold up my hands to everybody who was involved in District Day, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Dixon, I saw your hand up. You put it down now? It was up. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Trustee Beard.
Thank you. So there's been a few meetings with BCPC over the last little while, but just to highlight, primarily we had the AGM on January 27th and 28th via Zoom. It was, although we couldn't meet in person, it was still quite a rich meeting. So other than regular business, we just focused on preparing for bargaining, of course, and it was, we had some wonderful speakers too. So that was a really great two-day event that I was lucky enough to attend. So, thank you.
Thank you. We've been busy people, mostly Zoom, but busy anyways. And last but not least, as board chair, I have attended a number of meetings, BCPC, BC School Trustees, Ministry of Education, and I have reported out on those 2 trustees. Mostly the topic, COVID, of course. A special time, a very sad time, January 31st was a day of remembrance ceremony held at the Giving Tree Circle at the board office and led by Nathan Wilson, Kanakawak from the Indigenous Education Department to honor and remember those students from the Williams Lake Residential School who never had an opportunity to go home, and for their families who never had an opportunity to watch their children grow. We hung 92 hearts on the trees in memory. Elder Rose Guerin attended and she spoke her truth. It was a somber ceremony, and I believe those who were in attendance know it won't be the last. Saddest. We had an Indigenous Education Equity and Action meeting on February the 16th. Our guest speaker was Mike Bowden, who's the district principal of Indigenous Education of School District 73, Kamloops Thompson. And he spoke on the district's journey towards equity, beginning with an equity scan, which is something that we did as a district a few years ago. This year, the district has a theme. It's called Trauma-Informed Education. Where have we heard that? It's such an important process. And they're doing a learning series on this topic. And people have spoken. I can't say enough about District Day. Oh my gosh. To me, watching the canoes being paddled into Dease Slough and having Nathan in the canoes with them after he had cleansed, an elder on the dock waiting welcoming, giving them permission to come ashore. What a way to start. It gave us as settlers permission to come ashore and to participate in the day. And it was just unbelievable. The rest of it, people have commented on. You haven't talked about Kevin Lamoureux, who was the keynote speaker. And Kevin shared his history and his story, and he weaves reconciliation throughout his remarks. He is an incredible speaker. He speaks from the heart. And if you haven't heard him before, I would urge you to do whatever you can to be able to listen to him. I'm so glad that the district brought him in. And as others have said, thank you to Ted, Diane, Nathan, Paige, everyone who was involved in the creation of that day. It was absolutely, I came away with a really full heart. What can I say? And just a brief reminder to everybody, tomorrow is Pink Shirt Day. And when you wear those pink shirts, I hope we're all going to recommit to supporting those who have been bullied and to doing their best to make this world a kinder and better place for everyone to live. So thank you. Okay. I'd like to, we're now coming to the end of the meeting. And I'd like to ask Catherine Tucker, who's Director of Communications, if there are any questions. Or first of all, let's start with the people who are in the meeting. Is there anyone in the meeting that had a question? I'm not seeing any hands or anything. No, okay. Catherine, were there any questions?
No questions this evening, Chair Windsor.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Then our next meeting is going to be on March 8th. That's your opportunity to come, and we'll have a facilitated budget session. 7:30. Trustees, could I please have someone move? That would be meeting adjourned. Trustee Kanakis, seconded. Trustee Dosanjh. All those in favor? Opposed? And thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to the DTA and CUPE for your presentations as well. Have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you on the 8th.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.